It's time for the Sports Blitz, the only live-streamed local sports show in Arkansas, with all the latest on the sports stories that matter to you.
Welcome into the Sports Blitz on a Wednesday. Mark Freeman, Weldon Braxton, Maddie Lassiter in the Cogswell Motors studios, here to bring you the latest in local, state, and national sports. Got a lot of stuff to talk about today. The NFL draft is tomorrow. We asked the question today, who do you want your team to draft? If you have a favorite team, Maddie's got the Minnesota Vikings, got the Dallas Cowboys at number 16. I know our boy Jason is a Tampa Bay Buccaneers fan, and Weldon's he's just a connoisseur of the NFL. He has a pick for every team. So got a lot of stuff to talk about today, including the NBA playoffs as well.
Man, Mark. Some days, I'm always glad to be on this show, and it's always fun, but I got to admit, some days are more enjoyable than others, and it's one of those times because, you have the NFL draft. It's been moved back a couple of weeks, and I've kind of felt it. I don't know about you, Mark, but I've kind of felt it's been kind of an awkward. Even when the draft was back in April, you still felt like they kind of beat the same dead horse, talking about the same players, but I think that was even magnified this year. How many times, look, whether you like Manziel or not, you know by now. You know if you like Clowney. You know by now. But, McShay and Kuiper, they do a great job. But it feels like it's repetitive. I'm ready to see. I want to see that surprise in the draft. I want to see that guy who everybody graded out as a third-round pick get picked in the top 15. I'm ready to see stuff like that. And, of course, you have the NBA playoffs. Can we get a competitive game? All these series, all 4 game ones, really weren't anything worth watching whatsoever. The opening night, Pacers and Wizards. Then you look at the Clippers and what they did to Oklahoma City. Then last night, Brooklyn getting destroyed by Miami. The Portland Trail Blazers outclassed by San Antonio. Can we please get a good second round like the first round?
Yeah, the first round spoiled us. And in a lot of ways, I think, that's what you're going to see in the second round. But, I think the Clippers in Oklahoma City will be a much better series. You had a thought on that we'll talk about here in a little bit. I still have no idea what's happening with the Indiana Pacers. I expected them to win. I picked them to win in 7 games. It's going to be tough for them to win at all. They lost game 1 at home. But if they do, it's looking like it's going to be a long series. And then San Antonio just absolutely obliterated Portland last night. I had that one a little bit wrong. I think San Antonio in 6 or 7,
but
early. Just the fact that Weldon nailed how this game was going to go as far as men versus boys. San Antonio just toying with Portland, and that's exactly what happened to the tune of 116-92. And then the Miami Heat. I said it on Monday. It was going to be a short series because all these different factors coming together just doom the Brooklyn Nets, in my opinion. They're 4-0 against the Miami Heat this year. 2 of them against a Dwayne Wadeless Heat team. They hear all this. The Heat hear all this talk about how the Nets wanted to play the Heat and the Heat wanted to play the Raptors instead of the Nets, and they've got Paul Pierce and Joe Johnson and Kevin Garnett and all these guys that they just give Miami and LeBron so much trouble. And then to top it off, he'll never say it, but LeBron James watching Kevin Durant lift that MVP trophy, you think that didn't fuel some fire last night? I watched LeBron, and there were a couple times where he'd get in the lane, he'd run somebody over and get a bucket, and then he'd turn around and he just had this furious look in his eye, like I'm a man on fire. So I really think this can be a short series.
Well, I think let's say LeBron was motivated by what happened with the Nets or what happened with Kevin Durant. I think all these series, it's early. It's too early to tell that they're going to be short. Even Portland. Now, I know I said Portland gets sliced and diced. Ultimately, I think they will, but you get them up in the Rose Garden, that energy. We talk about Oklahoma City because we've seen them in the playoffs the last few years. I'm still a Rose Garden guy as far as which place can get crazy come playoff time. That place, we haven't seen that building in a few years. That place can get crazy. And then I think Brooklyn's going to be a lot better. Again, I still have Miami in 6 games. You look at the way they approached Miami. I didn't think it was a Brooklyn-type way. I almost thought it was a little bit too passive. I expected more of a Rough Rider approach from Brooklyn. I think they'll get back to that. I'm not sure they'll win game 2, but I think it'll be a lot more competitive. And then when you look at the Washington Wizards, that's probably the series, because I'm with you on the Clippers. I think the Clippers and the Thunder will get evened out. But the Pacers and Wizards, that's the series in which I can't say with any degree of confidence that I expect anything more. Indiana had a decent stretch later on in the game once it was just about over. But Washington right now looks like the better team. I had Indiana in 7 games. I don't think it'll get there. I think it may be Wizards in about 6 based on what the Pacers have shown.
Yeah, man, we've got to talk a little bit about that. Roy Hibbert, what in the world is going on with him? So
yeah,
there's a lot of NBA talk today after the first segment here. Our CrossFit Russellville poll question, though, deals with the NFL draft. I want you to give us a call at 968-NEWS if you would like to give us your answer to the question. That's 968-6397. Who do you want your team to draft? The NFL draft, whether it's first round or wherever. Is there a name or a person you'd like to see play for your squad? Just give us a call and let us know. Or you can go to facebook.com/sportsblitz. And you can answer the poll question. You go to facebook.com/RVL News. While we're talking about RVL News and River Valley Leader, we need you to go to rivervalleyleader.com, top right of the page, and purchase your tickets today to the Brightest Stars Banquet. Worked out some more details today. Found our scholarship sponsor. We've got a $500 scholarship that we're going to be handing out to one lucky student athlete who's going to go, the NCAA commercial. 99% of us will go pro in something else.
Yeah.
This athlete is going to go to college, not on a scholarship to play a sport, but an academic scholarship. We're going to need to go to college and have some help. So we're able to, with the help of Help Network, who is going to sponsor the award, give a scholarship to one student athlete who's very deserving, and I'm looking forward to that. We've got the Help Network Assistant Coach of the Year nominees. We've also got the Hand Up Assist winner of the year. That's the person who had the most assists in basketball. It's one of the Help Network awards. We've got their finalists as well. The assister of the year, the Hand Up Award is what they're calling it, for most assists. The finalists are Rustin Hayes from Hector, also Chandler Stanek from Hector, and then Freddie Lee from Clarksville. Those are your 3 finalists in the Assister of the Year or Hand Up Award, and then the Assistant Coach of the Year, the Help Network Assistant Coach of the Year. Nominees are, you'll know one of these guys, Mitchell Wilson, assistant boys basketball coach at Russellville High School. I'm sort of partial. He's one of my good friends and love that guy. He's one of the nicest people you'll ever meet in your whole life. Good thing I'm not voting on this. Sean Walter from Dardanelle High School, assistant high school and head junior high coach, if I'm not mistaken, in football. And then Cliff Jones from Lamar. So congratulations to coaches Wilson, Walter, and Jones for being assistant coach of the year nominees. You'll find out on May 29th who wins those awards and all the other ones. That's 22 awards in total.
What sport was that Lamar assistant coach
Football.
from? Football, yeah, I was going to say,
Cliff Jones.
What a sensational year Lamar had.
Yeah.
I mean, they had a great year.
If it wasn't for Charleston being as good as they were, Lamar might have been undefeated in the regular season.
Oh, absolutely right. You mentioned what's the percent of kids going pro in some other sports?
I just said 99. It's probably something like 90.
Yeah. Well, it reminded me of a tweet I saw after Ohio State lost to Dayton. They said Aaron Kraft becomes one of the so-and-so percent of kids going pro in something other than sports. And even though that's probably true, it's still cold. It kind of made me laugh.
Yeah, that's hilarious. Well, we've got those up there at the site. We've got all the award nominees and finalists up there. And on the night of the event, we've actually had Anytime Fitness come on to buy some frames for our certificates, and so now everybody who shows up, all of the nominees, now the finalists get tickets free. That's our treat to them. All the nominees that want to come that aren't finalists, they're welcome to come. You have to buy a ticket, but we're giving a certificate, a frame certificate, a nice looking certificate of nomination, just kind of honoring those players because their coach thought enough of them to send their name in, and we wanted to be someone who could, at least give them the honor and the notification that, hey, your coach thought enough of you to nominate you for Player of the Year award. And, on that night, we're going to be able to recognize everyone and give those awards out at the banquet. So.
Oh, yeah, huge deal. Again, I like the fact that everybody's being acknowledged. I've said this before because it is an honor. Just being nominated elevates you above, several hundred students. You look how many student athletes are in Arkansas River Valley. Just to be nominated elevates you above several of those individuals. So even if you're not a finalist, or even if you don't end up taking home the trophy, you still deserve to be acknowledged. So I think that's a wonderful little gift, a little treat for the nominees.
Yep, it's going to be really cool. So we hope that everyone will get a ticket. I know that there are some folks who won't buy things online. It's just something
Do you
that some
know
people
people?
do. Some people do
Wow.
not want to spend money online because they're afraid. And, hey, this is rivervalleyleader.com. PayPal, you can, it's very secure, but if you don't want to buy tickets online, I understand that. We've got what we're doing for those that want to buy online. First off, you need to know that finalists don't need a ticket. The player himself or herself doesn't need a ticket, and then they get 2 tickets for their parents. So, if one parent can come and the other one can't, you can use that other ticket for someone else. And then the 4th ticket is for your head coach. If you're 3 nominees from the same school, there's only 1 head coach, so there's a couple extra tickets. Do with it what you will.
Yeah.
We don't want to have any of those seats go to waste. They're available. They're paid for, so show up. And then also, what we're doing with those finalists and the coaches, each finalist's name is going to be on a list, and everybody who buys a ticket online, we're going to take that PayPal list, we're going to compile it all onto one list, and we're going to have somebody sitting at the door with these names on a list. When you come up, I'm so-and-so, I'm the finalist, well, here's my parents and my coach, go on. And we'll just mark you off. So you don't have to buy a ticket. You don't have to show up and get a ticket. Don't even worry about going to the schools and getting a ticket. You're good to go. And then the people who buy online, you don't have to bring a receipt. You don't have to do anything like that. We'll have your name written down as we print off the PayPal list, and you just show us some ID, and we'll just mark your name off the list. The only reason that we bought these hard copy tickets is for people who just are afraid to buy things online, and I can totally understand that. And we've got 147 tickets. I don't know why we got 147. We bought 100, and they sent us 147. So what we've done is we've divvied those out among the 10 schools, and we're taking tickets to each school. Now, some schools are bigger schools. They have more tickets than others, but we've got tickets available at every school. And you can go to your high school front office, and now, unless they tell me different than what they told me in email, you're going to be able to go to your high school front office. There will be a little, Emily made a nice little stand that says Brightest Stars Banquet tickets here, $25. The tickets are right there. You can give them the money. She'll give you the tickets. Voila, show up. Those work just the same. So we've got those going to all the area high schools. I know Clarksville and Lamar will have theirs today and tomorrow. Russellville High School has theirs now. They're at Coach Johnson's office, the athletic office, over at the old Gardner School. I know Dardanelle's getting theirs today, and Danville's getting theirs today, and I'm going to be delivering the rest of them as quick as I can. Hector's going to have theirs tomorrow. I'm meeting with their principal this afternoon to drop those off with them. So all these schools are going to have these tickets. Weldon, there is no excuse not to get your ticket if you can get them online or you can get them in hard copy.
Yeah, obviously you can easily, just a few clicks, get it online. Then, Mark, as you said, if you're not quite comfortable doing that, sometimes you just like to say, here's my cash, give me my ticket, let's do it that way. You have that option too at your local school, so it's available to everybody. As you said, Mark, no excuse. If you want to be at the Brightest Stars Banquet, you have every opportunity to do so for, as we've said many times, an outstanding event for the kids. It's all about the kids.
It definitely is. I'm hearing from coaches. I just got a text just now from a coach and got a couple last night. They're excited about it. Their kids are excited. The schools are making announcements about it. I know that Clarksville had I really appreciate Coach Dugan, the former athletic director who's been taking care of all this, who had been calling the finalist parents and letting them know, hey, your kid's a finalist, it's free, show up to the event, and all the other nominees are going to be made aware via an announcement. If your school's not doing it, or if you hadn't heard if your school's doing it, give your school front office at the high school a call and ask them if they'll announce this banquet, because we want this to be a big deal. There's only 600 seats available, about 250 of them already spoken for, but we're asking for everyone to make this a big deal for these kids, man. To have 600 people in a building and I'm standing up and everybody's clapping, that would be such a huge deal for me.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping that everybody will show up and that it'll be a fun night, and it's something that these kids can remember, something they can put on a resume, something that they can have and hanging on the wall for the rest of their lives. And for the winners, it's going to be a really cool experience. You don't want to miss these awards. I'm just telling you, you're going to see some kids that win awards, and it's going to be the highlight of their year. I'm telling you now, there's going to be, I don't want to say it's shocking because these kids are all really, really good, but to see some of these kids win, and I know who wins the awards, to see some of these kids who win these awards, I am very much looking forward to the announcement.
Yeah, and sometimes I think we take it for granted about it's an award, whatever. What's their long-term benefit? What's the real benefit? But you'd be surprised, and I think, Mark, you touched on it. The look on the kid's face, being acknowledged, being amongst your peers. To me, that's the kicker. For me personally, I put myself in that position of how I would feel, what things would really appeal to me, and it's just. You get to stick your chest out a little bit. You get to say, I won this award. I was a nominee. I was one of the select few. I'm elite. That stuff makes you feel good as a player. I can tell you on the recruiting trail, it's special to for a kid to have an award or to be recruited by a school. All this stuff matters. And you may not understand it if you're not in the situation, but trust me, to watch these kids be able to do it, well worth the price of admission.
Definitely. I know all the schools have their own athletic banquets, and they honor those student athletes among their peers at the school. But for this Brightest Stars banquet, it's going to be honoring kids from Clarksville, Lamar, Russellville, Pottsville, Atkins, Hector, Two Rivers, Dover, Dardanelle, Danville. It's going to be a 10-school area where they get together with their peers from the entire River Valley, and they just have an awesome opportunity to kind of rub elbows with the best in their sports and their coaches and their families and friends. Aaron Peters is going to be our MC, our master of ceremonies there from Razorback Nation, KNWA in Northwest Arkansas, and also Italian Gardens. We want to say thank you to them for providing the catering on that night. It's going to be a nice Italian food dinner. So we're looking at a fun event. Got almost all the details ironed out. Big thank you to Emily Young, our graphic designer here, for helping me out. I'm walking into her office every day saying, hey, can you do this? Hey, can you do that? Drop what you're doing and do this. And she's been very, very gracious to do so. So, all right, we got to look at the NBA playoffs and some more local sports. And then we're getting into the NFL draft right after the break.
Hi folks, Richard Roberts with Cogswell Motors in Russellville. We've been in business since 1949. A dealership doesn't stay in business that long under the same ownership unless you're doing something right, and that's taking care of customers. We have the largest selection of new Ford, Lincoln, Mazda, and pre-owned vehicles in the River Valley. So if you want the most for your trade, the best interest rate on financing, and the best price on a new or pre-owned automobile, come to Russellville and see us. We're at 1900 East Main, or visit us on the web at cogswellmotors.com.
If you didn't count on KARK4 today this morning,
here's what you missed.
Updated news.
Police continue searching for suspects after a home intrusion overnight.
Developing stories.
It's another piece of presidential history turning up here in Arkansas.
And weather and traffic on the force.
Friday night, Saturday morning will bring us our next chance of rain.
Every 10 minutes.
Around the clock.
Making your day easier.
So rise and shine and count on.
Count on.
Count on. KRK4 today.
RiverValleyLeader.com is the #1 local source for instant news in the River Valley, offering HD video and live streaming along with top-notch coverage of all the news and events around the area. The River Valley Leader is the only place to go for all the information you need. Check out the newest local business featured on the site, as well as police news and coverage from important meetings, along with the personal stories, all at one convenient click. Check out RiverValleyLeader.com.
Today, there are more than 20 brands of cars being sold in America. So to be noticed, Ford and Cogswell Motors have to go further than anyone thought we could. How does Ford stand out above the crowd? Not just with plug-in vehicles like the new 2013 Ford Fusion Energy that gets a projected 100 miles per gallon equivalent, but also with a line of gas vehicles equipped with the innovative EcoBoost engines combining power and efficiency, plus a full measure of technologically advanced features. We invite you to stop into Cogswell Motors today. We go further than anyone thought we could, so that you can go further too.
Who do you want your NFL team to draft? That's today's CrossFit Russellville poll question. Welcome back into the Sports Blitz on a Wednesday. Mark Freeman, Weldon Braxton, Maddie Lassiter in the Cogswell Motors studios. Call us up, 968 News. It's 968-6397 with the people you want your NFL team to draft. You may not get the chance at Jadeveon Clowney if you're not a Houston Texans fan. You may not get a chance at Johnny Football if you're a Cleveland Browns fan. No, they're all talking about how they weren't going to draft him. But we'll look at that here in just a minute. We got to get to the NBA playoffs, and we'll talk about each one of those games individually, the game ones, and maybe preview the rest of the series. But the breaking news from yesterday is that the worst kept secret in basketball, Kevin Durant was named the MVP. He was given his trophy, and it was a very emotional ceremony, as they had just lost game one in that playoff series the night before, and here yesterday he's given his acceptance speech, and you can tell how much that award meant to him, how much his teammates meant to him, how much the game and his family, his mama, mean to Kevin Durant. I said it on Twitter, and I'll say it again. Kevin Durant is one of my favorite players. There's just no getting around it. He's a top 2-3 player in the world as far as my liking to watch him play, but he became one of my favorite people with the way he thanked his teammates and the way he went on about his mom. He made them give his mom a standing O. Man, it was touching.
Yeah, it really was, and it just showed you a genuine side of Kevin Durant. I mean, not to say he's phony any other time. He's a genuine guy, but people are wired differently. And Mark and we talked about this before the show about how you can be successful doing approaching it multiple ways. Kevin Durant's a guy who he's always had a degree of sensitivity to him when it comes to the people around him, and caring about his teammates and his family and things of that nature. And you saw that pour out during his speech for the MVP, and it was a little bit different. It had a different feel to it, but it certainly had a more connected vibe to it. I think that's just who Kevin is. And so I hear people talk about they've got game 2 against the Clippers coming up, and they just lost game 1. Obviously, at home, it's a must-win game. And I will say that is something that impressed me and kind of made me take a step back. It's like, you're not coming off a game 1 victory. You lost game 1, and you got a must-win game 2, yet you're able to pull yourself back from that and appreciate your family and your teammates and those around you. I think that's great. And so, we talked about, Mark, how people have kind of questioned whether or not he should be should he be appealing to those emotions right now? Or, would Michael Jordan or Kobe Bryant feel that way? And the answer is no, they wouldn't. And I don't knock Michael and Kobe for it, because that's how they're wired. They're wired to be straightforward. They're wired to be no nonsense. They're killers. They have a killer instinct about them. They're successful. But it doesn't mean Kevin Durant can't be successful doing it his way. And that's what I took from it.
Yeah, it drives me nuts when people try to classify people and say, well, you won't be successful, or I'm afraid you won't be successful because you're not the same way these other people are, because there are all kinds of successful people in the world. Do you think that all the billionaires in the world who have done great things are all type A personality people, are all people that are just cut your throat to get to the top? Not all of them are that way. They're not. They're all wired differently. There are people who are horrible human beings. There are people who are great human beings. And somewhere in there, there are ways to be successful and find success. Kevin Durant has done it the right way. He doesn't have to be Michael Jordan. Did you see, if you've ever seen Michael Jordan's Hall of Fame induction ceremony speech, you see the rub, you see the difference. There was Michael Jordan throwing everybody under the bus after it's all over. He's not competing against anybody else for the rest of his life. He's supposed to take his adulation. He's supposed to take these, this honor, and he's supposed to thank people, and he's supposed to say, you helped me and you helped. No, he's throwing people under the bus. You said I wasn't good enough. You were in my way, and you messed it, and he was just an absolutely horrible human being. And Kevin Durant, on the flip side, gets the opportunity to say, look what I did. I won this award. And he understands that he didn't win this award because his team was terrible. He won this award because his team was really good. He won this award because he was the best player in the league this year by statistical measures. He deserved this award, but he knew that his teammates helped him. I thought it was interesting that he singled out, he talked about each player. He singled out Caron Butler with the KD MVP, and he just thought that was a really big deal. And then he talked about Russell Westbrook, which I thought was really interesting, to say the least, because there's a lot of talk about Russell Westbrook. Can these two coexist and win a championship? I have my questions personally, whether or not they can win a championship because of the clash and the fact that Russell Westbrook thinks he's Kevin Durant. But it was really, really a neat acceptance speech.
It really was. And, like I said, it's just about how you're wired. Like I said, there's two different ways of doing it. There's two different ways of being successful. I used to think in a way where you could only be successful being like Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant, because that's how I identify. That's how I approach when I compete, when I coach. I look at it through, a straightforward, no-nonsense way about getting it done and people counting you out and doubting you. But I also have learned that you don't have to be that way, and other people aren't like that always, and so you can still be successful in doing that. And the thing with Russell Westbrook and Kevin Durant, he's been questioned for not being sort of that A-type personality. I don't think it hurts him, except I would like to see a little bit more of it when dealing with Russell Westbrook, because I think Russell Westbrook's the kind of guy that he is wired that way. He is more Michael and Kobe. Now, obviously not his game, but in terms of the way he sees himself as a leader of that team. But no matter how good Russell is, he's not as good as Kevin Durant. And KD does need to be that guy, and Russell needs to understand that. So I guess now my question mark is, moving forward, how does Russell Westbrook take this? Does Russell Westbrook now feel once again empowered, emboldened to go ahead and say, you know what? KD he doesn't have a problem. He's shooting however many times I want to, doing whatever I want to do. We're down 1-0. I'm finna show y'all something tonight in game 2, and then Lord have mercy, it could be 31 shots.
See, I think it'll be the opposite. I think
so?
Game 6 of the previous series, when he said, all right, 16 assists is what he had, a triple-double, 16 assists, and he just decided, all right, I'm gonna dominate like I do.
Yeah.
But I'm also going to make sure that Kevin Durant gets involved. I'm going to make sure that everybody else gets involved. I can see Russell Westbrook taking this as, okay, Kevin doesn't, which I know they talk to each other off the floor, and they know he knows Kevin Durant doesn't hate him, but he says, well, I know that KD's got my back, and I know he's going to be there for me regardless. I'm going to do my best to defer. Everybody knows how good Russell Westbrook is. He doesn't have to prove anything to anybody. If he does have to prove anything, it's that he can be a good teammate or great teammate,
right?
And he can set other folks up and make things happen for other people rather than taking 31 shots. I think it's going to go the other direction.
And see, look, I think what you just said was very sound. If it were somebody who, what's the nice way to say it? If it was somebody who had a different mindset than Russell, I would say you're right. But Russell's one of those kind of guys that we can say he shoots too much 80 times. He just doesn't care. And that's that's the downfall of Russell Westbrook. We've had this nice MVP moment. Everybody's rallying around KD. He shouldn't have to feel like he needs to prove anything, because we know he's at least one of the top 5 players in the game, if not the top 3 players in the game. But Russell, he always gets his mode. I don't know if it comes from his family or somewhere else, where he feels like he's got to show somebody something. And for
that
the
type
Thunder,
A, man. It's that Michael Jordan personality.
And that's where it comes from. And for the Thunder's sake, they can't have that. But again, if you're wired that way, you're wired that way. I think about how I'm in the coaching circuit. I'm thinking about some coaches have a lot of success just letting stuff go. Things kind of just come together. You put in the hard work, and it just comes together. And I was like, that just doesn't sit right with me. Like, I got to have my hand in everything. And so with Russell Westbrook, he's kind of that same way. I hope for their sake, because they're good young players. I hope what you said soaks in with them. But I know Russell, and I just got my concerns, and they got to win tonight, and I think they will.
I think they will too. You said before the show you don't think there's any chance they're losing.
No. Look, that's just not how the NBA works. The NBA, you don't be a favorite like the Thunder and be big time and lose the first 2 at home. There's no way. Like I said, I think Roger Goodell may announce an NFL team is coming to Russellville, Arkansas, before the Clippers win game 2. I could be wrong. I will tweet out I'm wrong. I'll come on this show Friday and say, hey, I was dead wrong. But that's just how I believe.
Well, we've got Clippers Thunder game 2 tonight. I'm with you. I think that it'll be a closer game. Chris Paul's not going to hit his first 8 threes, I promise.
No.
I'll go with Oklahoma City in that one too. Wouldn't be surprised if it's the exact opposite of game 1, where Oklahoma City just dominates. Looking at another one though here tonight, Indiana, Washington. Indiana is a mess.
Yeah, Indiana's struggling right now. We thought, okay, they won Game 7. Really, they won Game 6 and 7 in Atlanta. So now they won 2 straight. You said, okay, Pacers are back. But then they show up against Washington. Look, I didn't buy into Washington, but I will admit they're a lot better team than I thought. Nene is the key. Nene is that guy who, if I'm not just building an average NBA team, if I'm trying to build a championship NBA team, I want Nene on it because I think he's that caliber of a role player. Obviously, he's not a superstar or anything, but Nene is a big piece. I've always said Gortat was underrated, and then you have a Trevor Ariza who's won a championship and who's been on different teams, playoff experience. We know Wall and Beal are talented, but now they're starting to show some maturity even though they're still young. I got to give the Wizards a lot of credit, but as you said, Mark, yes, the Pacers are a mess.
Yeah, Roy Hibbert, what in the world? I believe that Roy Hibbert is shattered emotionally. He's still 7'2". How do you have no points and no rebounds? The what do they call it? The crap. I heard it yesterday. In tennis, they call it something. It's like they call it like double donuts or something like that. I don't know. It's funny, but he had no points and no rebounds at 7'2". He was worthless in the first game, and he struggled for a couple months now. He's probably not going to play much the rest of this series. He's going to have to find someplace else to play because Indiana is just not going to be his home anymore. Yeah,
and I gotta admit, I thought this would be a better series for him because of Washington's size. In Indiana, when Indiana went small against Atlanta, I think it may have been in Game 6. It was over at that point because once they figured out going small against Atlanta was the key, the Hawks really had no chance thereafter. But I don't know if that adjustment's in the bag for this series because of the size of Washington. That's why I thought Hibbert would be engaged and play better. But this team has some serious issues. I think we agree Mark Vogel can coach, but he may have to do it elsewhere just because this situation has fallen completely apart. Roy Hibbert is just – he looks like the Roy Hibbert from a game standpoint that came into the league. Now, physically, he's changed his body. I give him credit for that. But, there was a reason why he's 7'2" and went, 18th, 19th in the draft. If he had any degree of skill or any degree of dominance in his body, he would have been in the top 10, even if he had other deficiencies. But he worked his body. He came in and did so many different things. He worked so hard, got himself up to being a good player, and it was sort of a feel-good story. Now he's regressed ultimately. We're going to find out some things about this Pacer team if they indeed lose this series, and I can't imagine what it can be. I can't imagine, but it's I was talking to somebody about this, Mark, and we have our speculation. I'm not going to say it out loud, but when a team is having problems and they're not basketball-related problems, they don't like each other for off-the-court reasons, how many things can it be? You just think about that at home. What could the issue be besides, what we might think it is?
Yeah, really, there are only a few things. Just off-the-court stuff. We talked about this a month ago. They don't like each other. You can see it.
Yeah.
They're not fighting for one another. They're not going after that loose ball or trying to help on defense. They just let people get dunked on, and they'll let people get blown by, and they'll let people get open shots, and they won't pass it to this side of the floor. And it's one of those things where, man, they don't like each other, whether it's some sort of impropriety off the court, whether it's just the fact that they don't care for one another, their selfishness or whatever it might be, they don't like each other.
It's something, it's along the line Delonte West type stuff. It's somewhere along those lines.
You make me bring the donuts, I'm coming after your mama.
It's something along those lines.
Google it, man. Google it. Delonte West's Cleveland Cavaliers. All right. San Antonio just mopped the floor with Portland. Not a whole lot to say about that other than Tony Parker had 33 points and 9 assists. He just absolutely obliterated Damian Lillard and Portland there in that game, 116-92. And then Miami, 107-86 against Brooklyn. A little bit deceiving in the score category there, as Brooklyn probably had about the score they wanted to have to win that game. They wanted to win 86-84.
Yeah.
And Miami was able to hit some shots at the end of the game and sort of stretch that one out. They were able to shoot 56% from the field, hit 9 threes, and shot 87.5% from the free throw line. Very efficient game for one of the most efficient teams in the league. 5 guys in double figures, including 22 from LeBron James, 19 from Ray Allen, 14 from Dwayne Wade. Dwayne Wade was a plus 22 last night. In other words, when he was on the floor, they won by 22 points. And Miami just did what I expected them to do against Brooklyn.
And he looked good. Dwayne Wade looked really good and fresh. And, I mean, they had the time off from the Bobcats, and he came out making mid-range jumpers, making layups. He looked really good. I told you before the show, I thought Spoelstra spaced the floor perfectly. There's so many different ways in which you can bring help on LeBron. Really, no matter where Jason Kidd wanted to bring help from, there was a shooter out there, and they made shots. Battier was cold. Ray Allen had been cold coming out of the Bobcat series. I told you they had to resurrect James Jones just to get some shots to go. They made some. They hit threes the other night. Even on the first half, they shot 23%. It was only a 3-point game. So if Miami is going to get into the lane that easily, which that's the biggest adjustments the Nets got to do, then it's over, because basketball is about getting in the paint. I mean, we can talk about all this, strategies and X's and O's. If you can get in the paint consistently, especially in the NBA, it's over. I mean, that's really what it's about. Miami did it with ease. They dominated points in the paint. And if that does continue, then I'm with you. It will be 4 or 5 games. But I think Brooklyn will have a little something for them to at least make this a series worth watching. So would you rather see the Toronto Raptors, really?
It doesn't matter to me. I think Toronto, originally I said the same thing you did.
Yeah.
Brooklyn would be a better series for Miami, but it kept going. And people kept talking about it. And when you talk about this is the 2-time defending champion, you've got a guy who's handing over his MVP award. He is not going to be real happy.
But that's not about that, though. It's not about that.
To me, Brooklyn would have had to be. Charles Barkley said it best last night. He said, I guess it was Shaq. He said, "Man, this could have been a series if this were 2010." Charles Barkley said, "If my aunt had onions, she'd be my uncle." So this is not going to be a series because these guys are not good enough. They're old and they're just not good enough. If it comes to a point where Joe Johnson, who is young enough to put up some numbers, is going crazy, well, LeBron's going to go guard him. And if it comes to a point where Paul Pierce and Joe Johnson are, Shane Battier or Dwayne Wade or somebody else is going to have to step up on defense and help LeBron, they've got 2 guys who are going to be able to dominate. Let's put it this way. If Brook Lopez were playing, Brooklyn makes this a 6-game series.
Well, see, you're looking at it from a standpoint of when it's ideal for Miami. If Miami does everything that's ideal, then of course you're right. But we know sometimes it doesn't go that way. Sometimes Miami gets a little bit stagnant. Sometimes, LeBron will go drive to the basket. He may not get
you're
calls.
talking about them not taking it seriously, not caring.
Yeah, but see, I think with Brooklyn, though, and I agree, Brooklyn doesn't have anything for them, but they're going to have to play the dirty, cheap game.
Yeah, and LeBron's going to get put down a few times next game.
Yeah, and I think that's the only way, because, and for me, it's about, can I really enjoy? See, it's not just about the score. It's about, I have to say, it's about Paul Pierce. Like, Paul Pierce is such a punk. I just like watching him against LeBron. I mean, admit it, Mark. You would not sit up and say, that DeMar DeRozan is such a punk. That Kyle Lowry makes me sick. It's just boring TV to me. So the fact that you and a lot of people hate Paul Pierce is like, yes, I get to some entertainment as Miami goes to the Eastern Conference Finals.
I wish I could separate myself far enough to be that way, but I am. I watch Paul Pierce and I'm just like, I want to punch him in the forehead so bad. He just drives me
I agree.
nuts. And Kevin Garnett used to do the same thing, but he's just relegated to the bench because he's just not good enough anymore. He's just not any good anymore. Paul Pierce, at least, he can hit the big shot when he needs. I mean, literally, that's all Paul Pierce is going to do is hit shots. He's not going to guard anybody. No. He's not. He's just going to. He's Kendrick Perkins. 6 fouls and a scowl down on that end.
Oh.
He's hitting big shots on offense, and if he's able to do that, Joe Johnson is still balling. He's playing very, very well. He and Darren Williams are the only chance that the Brooklyn Nets have in making this a good series.
Don't forget about AK-47.
Yeah, with those stupid-looking pterodactyl tats on his shoulders. Me and Garrett were watching that game last night. He's like, are those tattoos on his shoulders? We hadn't seen it. He looks like an idiot. Of course, he looks like a pterodactyl in the face anyway.
Yeah.
All right. We've got to move on to the NFL draft, but we got to take a break first. We went a little long this segment. We do that sometimes.
Hey, I love it.
We can do whatever we want. We appreciate you staying with us today on the Sports Blitz. We got more after the break.
Hi folks, Richard Roberts with Cogswell Motors in Russellville. You know, we've been in business since 1949. A dealership doesn't stay in business that long under the same ownership unless you're doing something right, and that's taking care of customers. We have the largest selection of new Ford, Lincoln, Mazda, and pre-owned vehicles in the River Valley. So if you want the most for your trade, the best interest rate on financing, and the best price on a new or pre-owned automobile, come to Russellville and see us. We're at 1900 East Main, or visit us on the web at cogswellmotors.com.
If you didn't count on KARK4 today this morning,
Here's what you missed.
updated news,
Police continue searching for suspects after a home intrusion overnight.
developing stories,
It's another piece of presidential history turning up here in Arkansas.
and weather and traffic on the 4s.
Friday night, Saturday morning will bring us our next chance rain.
Every 10 minutes.
Around the clock.
Making your day easier.
So rise and shine and count on.
Count on.
KRK4 today.
RiverValleyLeader.com is the #1 local source for instant news in the River Valley, offering HD video and live streaming along with top-notch coverage of all the news and events around the area. The River Valley Leader is the only place to go for all the information you need. Check out the newest local business featured on the site, as well as police news and coverage from important meetings, along with the personal stories, all at one convenient click. Check out RiverValleyLeader.com.
Today, there are more than 20 brands of cars being sold in America. So to be noticed, Ford and Cogswell Motors have to go further than anyone thought we could. How does Ford stand out above the crowd? Not just with plug-in vehicles like the new 2013 Ford Fusion Energy that gets a projected 100 miles per gallon equivalent, but also with a line of gas vehicles equipped with the innovative EcoBoost engines combining power and efficiency, plus a full measure of technologically advanced features. We invite you to stop into Cogswell Motors today. We go further than anyone thought we could, so that you can go further too.
We've got our CrossFit Russellville poll question. We're going to save for after our final break. We've got a short segment here on the Sports Blitz. Mark Freeman, Weldon Braxton, Maddie Lassiter in the Cogswell Motors studios here on a Wednesday. Mark Jackson got fired yesterday. 51 wins, 3 straight years in the NBA playoffs, and just improvement every year. His players didn't really like it too much. Golden State Warriors, each one of them tweeting or making public statements about their disapproval of this firing and their wishing that Mark Jackson had stayed. Don't know really what to make of it other than the fact that his players liked him, they were loyal to him, and it's kind of curious. It seems, though, from all indications we were reading and hearing, that it was just a clash of personality with the ownership.
Yeah, this was a move that I think was 85-90% about things off the court. Obviously, the cherry on top was not getting past the first round in the last couple of years, but really the way he was building, the way he was moving, and that roster's not ready yet. That roster's not ready for a Western Conference Finals or an NBA Finals. But he didn't get out of the first round. That was the cherry on top of the bigger issue, as you said, Mark, his issues with management and how we know about the assistant coach that was fired for recording conversations. Then Scalabrini, an assistant, they had some issues, and the workplace environment wasn't that great from what I gather. And you can look at it from the Warriors standpoint and say they deserve the right to have a workplace in which they want as the ownership of the team. But it's really tough because, as you said, Steph Curry loved him. Klay Thompson, that team, Draymond Green, they loved Mark Jackson. And that's going to be a challenge for a new coach. A new coach is not only going to have to come in and do their thing, they got to get Mark Jackson and wash the team's hands of that. And when you get a new coach, a lot of times that's easy. I think it'll be a little bit more difficult in this situation. Then it kind of goes deeper. Mark Jackson pastors a church in Los Angeles, and he was going back to preach at that church, I think, more than what the team wanted him to do. It was kind of interfering with his job, although people on Jackson's side said no, it never interfered with what he was doing with the Warriors. So there's a lot of layers to this beyond basketball.
Man, Wow. He said that he didn't want to dance with the business side. He didn't want to talk about that. Reading the Yahoo Sports story he said there's, quote, a lot of stuff being told and lied about and leaked by what he referred to as being the business side. He felt the overarching problem was everyone wants the glory. He said there's a way to do things. At the end of the day, it will be how you talk to people, how you treat people. I'm going to walk away and take the high road. I'm not going to play the game and be disrespectful. I'm extremely blessed. I'm at peace. So he wasn't real happy with the way he was done, and he's going to make very sure that he takes the high road. I appreciate that, although you know there will be some information that gets out either from people that are close to him or from the organization. It's kind of a disappointment. It's kind of sad that that's the way it goes because you know he did a pretty good job. It seems like he got the most out of the team, and really, honestly, they could have won a couple of other series. They got the Clippers, though, in the first round.
Yeah, and I think that's an interesting point about the glory because I think Warrior management, well, and I don't agree with it necessarily, but I think they felt like the success the Warriors had the last couple of years was because of what they put on the floor, what they handed Mark Jackson. And they think he did an okay job with it. If everything was equal, we probably would have brought him back, but with the conflicts and the fact that we gave him this roster that was pretty good, it's more about what we did, more so than about what Mark did. But he's going to get another job, and of course the Warriors are looking at some candidates. Steve Kerr, obviously. With Steve Kerr, somehow his name has gotten really big. I mean, I get the Knicks because Phil wants a triangle puppet. I get that. But now Utah's looking at him, Golden State, just about every job open is looking at Steve Kerr. And I don't know why the train is running away so much. He's a great analyst. Think he'll be a really good coach, but seems like he's now the hottest name as far as coaching candidates.
Yeah, and really, I don't often take shots at First Take employees. Yeah, I do all the time. But Stephen A., man, what he said yesterday was kind of ridiculous. He was just going off about how black coaches don't get the same opportunities that Steve Kerr gets. The difference is Steve Kerr's never been a coach. He's a hot commodity because everybody thinks he's going to be a good coach. Some of these guys just haven't got it done. Now, Mark Jackson's not one. I'm not talking about him. I'm talking about like Mike Woodson. Okay, he was okay. He was okay at best. If you're getting Steve Kerr, it's because you want and you think that he can be much better. Mark Jackson's going to get another job. He's going to do a really good job, and I think he's good. Doc Rivers, people were beating down his door after the Boston, during the Boston run because he was one of the best coaches in the league. If you're a good coach, it doesn't matter what color you are. You're going to get an opportunity. Now, I do think it's unfair when coaches don't get an opportunity because of a race or whatever else, but in the NBA, that's the least of their worries. There are a lot of folks in the NBA getting chances.
No, and I don't think it's a race thing. I heard what Stephen A. said. I don't think it's a race thing. I think the only thing what Stephen A. said, what I agree with, is Steve Kerr, people may believe he's going to be a great head coach, but it feels like his name got hot randomly. He's been a GM, he's been in the league, but his name got hot for jobs other than the Knicks. Like I said, I get the Knicks. Again, he's a Phil Jackson guy. Phil's not going to get Thibodeau. Phil's not going to get a coach who's established doing things their way. He's going to get a little triangle good boy. But it is strange, and I guess you look at a George Karl, Lionel Hollins. I guess they're the recycled coaches, but it seems like Steve Kerr, the Knicks, that opening kind of got his name blown up. Like if the Knicks hadn't shown interest in Steve Kerr, I'm not sure I heard other teams getting in on him. So I don't think it's a race issue, but I do think it's a question just from a general standpoint because there's white coaches out there who I would think would get more consideration. But Steve, he's hot.
Here's the deal. One, I think they think his ceiling can be higher. The biggest reason I think Steve Kerr's name got hot quickly is because Phil Jackson wanted him. Phil Jackson mentioned him, handpicked him. If Phil Jackson is a guy that is attached to wanting you, just think about, I've read some stuff about headhunting at businesses, and if Google or Microsoft want you, everybody wants you. Because, they think enough of you that they want you. Phil Jackson's that way. He draws a lot of attention, and if Phil Jackson wants you, there's got to be good reason. So his name got hot for that reason.
And I think you're right, but also think that's logically not very smart, because Phil Jackson's not getting Steve Kerr because he thinks he's a great coach. He's doing it because he thinks he's going to run the triangle like he wants him. He's going to be a good little boy. He's a smart guy, but he's going to be a good little boy under Phil Jackson. You stick him in a situational unknown, it's a totally different dynamic. So I think you're right. That's probably why they think it. I just don't think they're very smart for going down that road of thinking, because it's a Phil Jackson thing. He tabbed him because he's my guy.
Yeah, well, that I know it relied on superstars, but that triangle offense has proven that it's won some championships.
Oh, yeah.
So we'll see if Steve Kerr can become one of the next great coaches. He's going to have his pick. He can go to Golden State. Apparently, they're after him. The Lakers and Knicks both after him. Man, what kind of week is Steve Kerr having? I know I'm going to be a head coach. Is it going to be in L.A., Oakland, or New York? That's a pretty good little run of a week for Steve Kerr. So we'll see where he ends up. We'll talk a little bit more about that as the situation unfolds. After this final break, we'll look at the NFL draft. It kicks off tomorrow, and we'll tell you who we want our teams to draft.
Hi folks, Richard Roberts with Cogswell Motors in Russellville. You know, we've been in business since 1949. A dealership doesn't stay in business that long under the same ownership unless you're doing something right, and that's taking care of customers. We have the largest selection of new Ford, Lincoln, Mazda, and pre-owned vehicles in the River Valley. So if you want the most for your trade, the best interest rate on financing, and the best price on a new or pre-owned automobile, come to Russellville and see us. We're at 1900 East Main, or visit us on the web at cogswellmotors.com.
If you didn't count on KARK4 today this morning,
Here's what you missed.
updated news,
Police continue searching for suspects after a home intrusion overnight.
developing stories,
There's another piece of presidential history turning up here in Arkansas.
and weather and traffic on the force.
Friday night, Saturday morning will bring us our next chance rain.
Every 10 minutes.
Around the clock.
Making your day easier.
So rise and shine and count on.
Count on.
KRK4 today.
RiverValleyLeader.com is the #1 local source for instant news in the River Valley, offering HD video and live streaming along with top-notch coverage of all the news and events around the area. The River Valley Leader is the only place to go for all the information you need. Check out the newest local business featured on the site, as well as police news and coverage from important meetings, along with the personal stories, all at one convenient click. Check out RiverValleyLeader.com.
Today, there are more than 20 brands of cars being sold in America. So to be noticed, Ford and Cogswell Motors have to go further than anyone thought we could. How does Ford stand out above the crowd? Not just with plug-in vehicles like the new 2013 Ford Fusion Energy that gets a projected 100 miles per gallon equivalent, but also with a line of gas vehicles equipped with the innovative EcoBoost engines combining power and efficiency, plus a full measure of technologically advanced features. We invite you to stop into Cogswell Motors today. We go further than anyone thought we could, so that you can go further too.
Final segment of the Sports Blitz on a Wednesday. Mark Freeman, Weldon Braxton, Maddie Lassiter in the Cogswell Motors studios, bringing you the latest in local, state, and national sports. We're looking at the NFL draft right now. Asked today's CrossFit Russellville poll question, who do you want your team to draft in the first round or just anywhere in the draft? And Corey Williams answered and said he'd love for C.J. Mosley, linebacker from the Alabama Crimson Tide, to fall to the Packers. I don't know if that's going to happen. We'll see. Where do the Packers draft? Number 21. That's an option. I'm seeing here on the NFL Nation mock draft on ESPN that they've got C.J. Mosley going a little earlier than that.
Yeah, it's going to be. I think he's in that 15 to 20 range or 12 to 20 type range.
So can we Can we agree that Jadeveon Clowney's going number 1?
Yeah, I think that's what's going to happen. Unless somebody blows Houston away with a deal, because they do want to get out, but if they stay there, they're taking Clowney.
And then that means a lot of folks take Greg Robinson, offensive lineman from Auburn, number 2, to St. Louis. So number 3, Jacksonville. Do you go Khalil Mack, or a lot of folks are talking about Johnny Manziel? Don't know why, but people are talking about a quarterback in Jacksonville, number 3. Do you go with the safe pick in Mack?
I don't know what their philosophy is. I mean, I know, look, Jacksonville took steps, especially defensively last year. Gus Bradley's bringing that Seattle mentality. Remember, he was a defensive coordinator before taking the Jacksonville job. And I started to see a little bit of Seattle in them. So do you go with a linebacker to solidify that defense? I think Mack would be a fit. Do you go quarterback? I mean, I don't know if Manziel is a Gus Bradley kind of guy. So I think they may wait, and they may take they may go receiver. They may go Sammy Watkins and maybe get their quarterback later. That's a wild card pick. I would say Mack right now if I had to guess, though.
Johnny Manziel's not going to the Browns. That's what who was it? I saw yesterday. Well, everybody. I know McShay said that. I know Fox guy, Jay Glazer, said that it's not going to happen. Johnny Manziel is not going to Cleveland at 4, even though this mock draft has him there. That means that they could take a Blake Bortles. They could go another direction entirely. I saw Todd McShay this morning said Sammy Watkins is probably the guy at number 4.
Yeah. I mean, I had him taking Manziel too until I saw that report. And, Cleveland, and I said this the other day, they have a good roster. They've put together some good players. They have to have a trigger man, though. So whether you trade for Kirk Cousins or whether you like somebody later in this draft, you got to get a quarterback to make this all go. You bring in Ben Tate. You've always got one of the best receivers in the game in Josh Gordon. You've got one of the best tight ends in Jordan Cameron. So, they may go with another receiving weapon and get their quarterback, but at some point they got to get that QB.
I was looking this morning and listening to analysts talk about the Jacksonville Jaguars taking a quarterback at 3, and if they got Johnny Manziel, I would just go ahead and guarantee you this. As far as all rookies go, he would have the most touchdown passes, yards, and interceptions, fumbles, and sacks. He's going to get beat up if he does go there. And also Justin Blackman would lead the league in touchdowns, yards, receptions, because he'd just be throwing it as far as he could to him every chance he got. I think that's the same sort of thing that's going to happen with some of these other teams at the top of the draft. Cleveland, like you said, they've got some talent there. Josh Gordon and the crew there, they need somebody who can throw them the football. We'll see if they get the right guy. Sammy Watkins here on this mock goes to the Raiders at number 5, but we've got that kind of switched up a little bit, and the Raiders having to go a different direction as Sammy Watkins. Obviously, they want the fastest guy in the draft because they're the Oakland Raiders, but we'll see whether or not they end up getting him or if he goes a little earlier. I'm not going to go through everybody, but it's interesting to see our boy Jason Kilburn, who calls in all the time, his Tampa Bay Buccaneers slated here at number 7 to get Mike Evans in this Nation mock draft. The wide receiver that Johnny Manziel made a star last year in the last couple years for Texas A&M. And then Blake Bortles going 8 to the Houston Texans, which means they would have to have traded out of the number 1 spot, and they traded with Buffalo in this mock draft. So that would be the best of all scenarios if you're Houston to get the quarterback and to get Jadeveon Clowney there at number 1. But just looking through and talking about who we want our teams to get, it looks like here Darkeezy Denard, the talented cornerback. I think he was the Thorpe Award winner or one of those awards.
He could play.
As a defensive back there from Michigan State, going number 9 to the Minnesota Vikings, Maddie's team. They need all the help they can get. They need about 7 quarterbacks who can help them, and really just anything outside of Adrian Peterson they would take. But Dallas Cowboys at number 16. I've seen a couple names here that interest me, and they're actually who? Dante Culpepper's corpse to play quarterback for you. I've got 4 players for the Dallas Cowboys at number 16 that I'd like to see them get. Interestingly enough, these 4 players are only from 2 schools.
I bet I know one of them. Well, go ahead.
All right, who are they?
I think you want Mr. Ha Clinton Dix.
That's the first one on the list. Clinton Dix, the safety from Alabama. Just go get him. And if you don't get him, get C.J. Mosley, the linebacker from Alabama. That's the other one that I'd like from Alabama. And then if you go a different route and you want to go help the defensive line, you can get Nix from the Notre Dame defensive line there, or you can get Zach Morton. And offensive tackle there from Notre Dame. I would be happy with any of those 4.
Yeah, they definitely need help on defense. I'm with you on Clinton Dix. I think if they go offense, I think there's a really good value player in this draft that's going to be in Dallas's neighborhood, a guy who I actually think is a better all-around player than Mike Evans. Now, he may develop and Evans may become better, but Odell Beckham Jr. right now, to me, he's not just a slot. He can play some X, he can play some Z. Obviously, he can help in the return game. And to me, Mike Evans is a little one-dimensional right now. I mean, if it's not a
run
jump
as far as you can and jump.
Yeah. I mean, if it's not a jump ball running, which there is huge value in doing that in the league. Don't get me wrong, but I think Odell Beckham is a better weapon. I think you look at what Dallas is trying to do right now. I could see them going offense from this standpoint. The defense is not going to come along with this pick. If you got a 34-year-old quarterback, you got a team that's trying to win in the immediate time, do you just go for it? And I think if you're in that go for it mode, you help your offense. I mean, Miles Austin is gone, whatever his situation is. Can you imagine Dallas if they're not good on offense and their defense is terrible? I mean, it's really going to be a train wreck. So you could say solidify your offense and then try to help your defense through your other draft picks and for your free agents or whatever. That's just one philosophy. So I could see Dallas going with Clinton Dix or a secondary player or Odell Beckham.
Man, I think they've got to improve as much as they can, as quickly as they can, in as many areas as they can. So if they're going after a defensive player, I'm not going to be upset.
Yeah.
They lost DeMarcus Ware, so they're going to have to do some things. They lost a lot
Jason Hatcher
on the defensive line, so they're going to need some help. Defensive line and linebacking core, they're going to need some help there. Protecting Tony Romo, I would never be mad if they got an offensive lineman. The last 2 years, they got Frederick and I guess it's 2 or 3 years, Tyron Smith.
Yeah.
From USC. So they've been trying to solidify that offensive line. I wouldn't be upset with either one of those. I probably would, in all seriousness, and I like Odell Beckham. He's put some highlight reel tape up against Arkansas, so I have no reason to like him. But I'd be a little bit upset if they drafted him. But with all the other needs that they got as far as Dallas goes, I know what you're talking about and why they could do it, but you've got Des Bryant and you've got Terrence Williams, who you drafted last year. I think Cole Beasley can be a really good one out there as well. You've got guys in the receiving core. Now, if you did have a chance at maybe a Sammy Watkins or somebody like that, then if he fell to you, then you get him. But at this point, they need so much in other areas. I'd be upset if they got a receiver.
I'll be upset if they take Brandon Cooks over Odell Beckham. Like if they go receiver, because everybody thinks Brandon Cooks and Odell Beckham are neck and neck. I don't. I think Beckham's a better player. You can say it's SEC bias. I watched enough Oregon State. I've watched enough Brandon Cooks to know I think I'll take Odell Beckham. But Dallas is going to draft somebody we've never heard of. That's the way it goes. Like a guy like Escobar, who better show something, because Jason Witten is going to fall off one of these days, and they need Escobar to finally show up and do something.
Definitely. All right, we got to get out of here. That's all the time we've got for today. By Friday, when we come back, we'll be talking a little bit about the second round and beyond in the NFL draft. We'll be able to tell you who your team picked with their first pick in the first round of the NFL draft. Talk a little bit more NBA playoffs and whatever else comes our way between now and then. We appreciate you taking the time to be with us today. For Weldon and Maddie, I'm Mark saying so long. We'll see you at 11 o'clock on Friday.